Iran did not become our enemy in 2026. They declared war on us in 1979. Every day the blockade holds, Iran's oil infrastructure is not just paused, it's being permanently destroyed. The blockade is the most strategic, most humane, most cost-effective response we have ever deployed. No troops on the ground, no nation building, economic reality applied with patience and precision. Picture an American Marine, 22 years old, stationed in Beirut, Lebanon. It's October 1983. He woke up that morning doing his job, serving his country, protecting American interests. He never went home. 241 Americans died that day, killed by an Iranian-backed suicide bomber. That was 43 years ago, and Iran has not stopped its terrorism since, not for a single day. Today, the United States Navy has a blockade in the Straits of Hormuz. No troops on the ground, no occupation, just ships. Economic pressure and a strategy. Today, I'm going to show you the full record of why we are there, what the left and the right believe about it, and what common sense says we should do. Welcome, Patriots, to this edition of Common Sense for America. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, coming to you from the beautiful Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's dive in. Here is the situation. After 47 years of proxy war, the United States is in direct conflict with Iran. Following a 12-day kinetic campaign that struck Iran's nuclear facilities and degraded its air defenses, destroyed its navy, destroyed its air force, the United States Navy established a blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. The goal is economic strangulation, cutting off the oil revenue that funds Iran's military, its proxy armies, and its nuclear program. The record behind this decision is not complicated. In 1979, Iran stormed our embassy and held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. In 1983, Iran-backed forces killed 241 American Marines in Beirut in a single morning. For decades, Iran funded proxy armies directed specifically at American interests and American allies. Every rocket fired at Israel, every missile fired at our bases, every tanker seized in the Red Sea and the Straits of Hormuz was terrorism that Iran committed or paid for. In 47 years, thousands of Americans have been killed as a direct result of Iranian terrorism. Think about that for a moment. Thousands of Americans. Every diplomatic overture, Oman, Islamabad, Geneva, ended the same way. Iran refused to discuss its missiles, refused to discuss its proxy armies, and demanded sanctions relief while continuing to enrich uranium to make a nuclear bomb. The blockade is not aggression. It is the first strategy in 47 years that imposes a life-threatening cost to Iran without putting American troops on the ground. The blockade prevents Iran from selling its oil and getting revenue. It has also filled Iran's oil storage tanks because they cannot ship the oil out. Without any storage, Iran will be forced to shut its oil wells. Now here's the kicker most people do not know. A gas well can be shut down and easily restarted, and with relative ease and relatively low expense. An oil well is completely different. When you shut in an oil well, the reserve pressure drops and the formation can collapse, and you cannot simply restart it. You must drill an entirely new well at a cost of millions of dollars. Now repeat that on a national scale, and you bankrupt the Iranian regime. Every day the blockade holds, Iran's oil infrastructure is not just paused, it's being permanently destroyed. Thomas Paine understood enemies who reject reason. He wrote, "Whoever considers the unprincipled enemy we have to cope with today will not hesitate to declare that nothing but arms or miracles can reduce them to reason and moderation. Now, he could have written that yesterday about Tehran. Now let's consider the left's position on Iran. The opposition's concerns deserve a fair hearing because some of them are legitimate. Critics on the left argue that Congress never formally authorized this conflict. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war, and no such declaration was made. They argue that a president who acts unilaterally to blockade a sovereign nation sets a precedent that future administrations will use in ways we cannot predict. That is a constitutional argument, and it is not frivolous. They also point to history. We spent $2 trillion in 20 years in Afghanistan. We spent another trillion in Iraq. Both ended in ways that were not what we planned. What is the exit strategy here in Iran? What does a post-regime Iran look like? What does it really look like? Who fills the vacuum? These are fair questions that deserve honest answers. Both sides are asking valid questions, and here's what common sense says. The constitutional concern is legitimate, and Congress should vote on it, up or down. Put every member of the House and Senate on record. Formal authorization would silence the partisan noise and signal to Iran, to our allies, and to the world that this is not one man's decision. It is America's decision. The signal of American resolve would rally the world to our side and force the Iranians to sue for peace. On the exit strategy, blockade is the exit strategy. We are not building a democracy from scratch the way we tried to do in Afghanistan and Iraq. We're making it economically impossible for the regime that declared death to America to function. When the Revolutionary Guard cannot be paid, when the lights go out, when the forces propping up the mullahs run out of fuel, the Iranian people will finish what they've already started. At least 6,800 of them died in the streets demanding freedom. It is estimated that tens of thousands more have been imprisoned and tortured by the current regime. George Washington told us a free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined, to render them independent of others for essential, particularly military, supplies. Now, the Iranian people do not have guns. To help them, we must render the Republican Guard impotent. The blockade does that. It is strength applied with precision. That is not aggression. That is common sense. Call your representative and tell them to vote on this. Tell them that partisan games in the middle of a conflict we did not start are not patriotic. They are a partisan mistake that comes close to treason. The American people deserve a united front. Now remember, Iran did not become our enemy in 2026. They declared war on us in 1979, and they fought for 47 years before we responded with real force. The blockade is the most strategic, most humane, most cost-effective response we have ever deployed. No troops on the ground, no nation building, economic reality applied with patience and precision. This matters because the alternative, a nuclear-armed Iran with no consequences and no constraints, is a world none of us want to leave to our children. Now, please share this with anyone asking why we are in this conflict. They deserve the full story. Next week, we examine how inflammatory political rhetoric is putting American lives at risk right here at home. Until then, may God bless you and yours, and God bless America.